My Alexander, fear not, Hephaestion. We are at the beginning.
Even Alexander's private life was marked by grand gestures and legendary passion. He married Roxana, a beautiful Bactrian princess, shortly after defeating her tribe in 327 BC, a union that Alexander himself treated as a spontaneous love match, as the artist Gustave Moreau later imagined it. Alexander abruptly stopped the wedding ceremony to bless Roxana as his wife and father of his child. Roxana bore his only acknowledged son, Alexander IV, and Alexander is said to have genuinely loved her. Later, Alexander also married Statera and Parysatis, the daughters of the Persian king Darius, in a political gesture of unity. Even before these marriages, he had one notable affair. Plutarch reports that Alexander was briefly enthralled by Barsine, daughter of the Persian satrap Artabazos, enthralled by her beauty and knowledge of Greek literature. Mary Renaud notes that rumors of a son by Barsine strained credulity in a man who named cities after his horse and dog. Renaud quips, an extramarital son was unlikely. Diodorus adds that Alexander even adopted some Persian customs of kingship, keeping a harem not less than the days of the year, though he reportedly did so sparingly. Mindful of Macedonian sensibilities, Alexander's writings and stories suggest he valued marriage and loyalty. He once wrote advising a Greek officer that everyone should wed, calling marriage the foundation of cities, but ancient authors also emphasize his restraint. Cordius Rufus says Alexander scorned sensual pleasures to such an extent that his mother was anxious lest he be unable to beget offspring. In fact, his mother Olympias famously hired a courtesan Calixena to test him, fearing he was becoming too womanish. Alexander reportedly refused to be corrupted by decadent pleasure. He declined offers of prostitutes even from orators like Demosthenes, and once politely refused a suitor's request to kiss a handsome boy in public, to spare the boy's master embarrassment. These anecdotes, whether entirely factual or not, shape the image of Alexander as a self-controlled warrior, devoted to his mission and loved ones. If Alexander's marriage ties were one side of his heart, his bond with men, especially Hephaestion, was the other. Hephaestion of Ammon was Alexander's boyhood friend and inseparable companion. Plutarch records that Alexander showed most affection for Hephaestion and most esteem for Craterus, explaining that Hephaestion was a friend of Alexander, but Craterus a friend of the king. In other words, Alexander treated Hephaestion not just as a general, but as his other self. In a famous anecdote, when Alexander's mother Olympias sent him urgent letters from Macedonia, he allowed Hephaestion to read. 17th century painting of Alexander with Hephaestion in armor. Right. Plutarch says Alexander loved Hephaestion. Most of all men entrusted him with state secrets. Alexander formed other deep attachments too. In India he adopted the young Persian eunuch Bagoas, who had been a favorite of Darius. Ancient authors tell how Bagoas won a dancing contest and Alexander, urged by the cheering troops, embraced and kissed him affectionately. The Roman historian Cordius depicts Alexander as being madly in love with Bagoas, even blaming him for persuading Alexander to punish the governor Oryxines. Modern scholars caution that such stories may be exaggerated propaganda. As historian Daniel Ogden notes, the story is simply too good and should not be used to draw any conclusions about Alexander's true feelings. Still, the episode with Bagoas highlights how Greek society openly accepted male-male affection, and how Alexander indulged his companions' military or personal in dramatic ways when it pleased him. In Alexander's worldview, love and loyalty were intertwined with honor and destiny. He often spoke of devotion to comrades as the highest calling. When Hephaestion and Craterus quarreled, Alexander reconciled them by swearing an oath by the gods that he loved them most of all men, and warned that any future descent would be punished by death. The gesture underscored that Alexander placed personal loyalty above even rigid hierarchy. He similarly showed deep respect for his mother. Though he famously insisted on ruling alone, he wrote tenderly to Olympias and even told his general Antipater that one tear shed by his mother would wipe out 10,000 letters of reproach. These sentiments, intense and perhaps uncalculating, illustrate the fervor of his personal bonds. Meanwhile, Alexander's imperial drive was a personal passion. He consciously modeled himself on Achilles. Believing destiny had made him a demigod, Arrian records Alexander's boast at Troy. He felt less fortunate than Achilles because he had no Homer to sing his deeds, implying that Alexander craved immortal fame. He strove to tie his personal legacy to his conquests. He named cities after loved ones, including one after Bucephalus, his horse, as if to outwit mortality. Mary Renaud remarks that a man who named cities for his horse and dog was hardly likely to leave his son unloved. In battle, he rewarded valor and loyalty lavishly, but punished betrayal mercilessly, as in the execution of the traitor Philotas. Every victory, marriage, or monument served both his political strategy and his personal myth. In effect, conquering the world was Alexander's ultimate love affair with glory itself. The famous Roman Battle of Issus mosaic shows Alexander and his beloved horse Bucephalus. Antiquity, he even founded a city Bucephala in the horse's honor. Mary Renaud notes Alexander's peculiar priorities. He named cities after his horse, in casting doubt on some personal legends. Ancient biographies hint at Alexander's inner yearnings and even fantasies. Plutarch recounts tales, probably legendary, of Alexander's dreams and omens. For example, a snake in Olympias' bed and prophetic vision suggested divine parentage. Alexander himself once told a soothsayer that he would either prove immortal or die heroically. Later on the Indian expedition, he encountered the Indian sage Calanus and even considered self-immolation in fire, reflecting a deep fascination with death and rebirth. Though few of Alexander's own letters survive, he corresponded with loved ones and menors. One famous letter to Olympias in Troy praised her care, while a letter to Aristotle after defeating Darius bragged of having split the Gordian knot, symbolic of conquering fate. Through these writings, he reveals a man thrilled by destiny and glory. Ancient novelists and later traditions further embellished Alexander's private mind. Some stories, like an Amazon queen visiting his camp, likely owe more to myth-making than to reality. Plutarch notes Alexander himself discounted the Amazon tale. He makes no mention of the Amazon in his letter, so it probably never happened. Other sagas, like fables of wild orgies or bizarre lovers, should be taken with skepticism. Even early Greek historians did not distinguish between myth and history as we do. But the mythic aura serves a point. In antiquity, Alexander was portrayed as larger than life, testing the boundaries of human experience. Whether through scripture or storytelling, he came to represent a man who lived every passion for power, love, or wisdom to the fullest. Many aspects of Alexander's personal life remain debated or sensationalized. For centuries, the scant evidence has invited speculation. Ancient sources differ on Alexander's sexuality. Some modern historians see hints of homosexuality, for example, Olympias' fear of him being womanish, while others emphasize his heterosexual marriages and fathering a son. The truth may be that Alexander defied simple labels. Recent scholarship tends to view stories like Alexander's kiss of Bagoas as too good to be definitive proof, and even questions whether Bagoas the Younger existed at all. Likewise, wild tales about Alexander, from necrophilia to fake children, are often traced to hostile or sensationalistic writers. For example, Justin attributes the rumor of a secret son to Athenian gossip, not Alexander's own camp. Popular portrayals have often glossed over these complexities. Early films either whitewashed or erased his same-sex relationships entirely. Oliver Stone's 2000 for film, Alexander was unusual in showing a non-explicit kiss with Hephaestion and depicting Bagoas as a lover. hinting at Alexander's bisexuality, but many other movies and books simply leave out the man in his intimate circle, focusing solely on Roxana or invented romances. This modern straightwashing clashes with the ancient record, where such loves were not scandalous but matter of fact. As scholar James Davidson notes, ancient Greeks expected nobles to have boy lovers as well as wives, so Alexander's attraction to both men and women would have been seen in